I'm joined now by Nina Gabrich, Kraków City Mayor's Plenipotentiary for Equality Policy. Hello, Nina.
Hi, hello. Happy to be here.
First of all, and happy to have you with us. Tell me, how long has this function existed in the city, first of all?
Since 2021, it's sort of new. We had
It's fair to say.
Equality Council since 2019, but this position 2021.
So we want to talk today about going beyond company walls. This conference is primarily about the experience of employees in a variety of corporate and institutional ecosystems. But in this conversation, we want to go beyond, so to say. And as we know, companies are not islands. They exist in cities. And among the reasons why employees decide to come to a particular brand is also the quality of life in the city. So when you think about this relationship between companies, cities, and employees, and how inclusive this entire ecosystem should be, what are your first thoughts?
Well, I think implementing equality policy on local level and human rights perspective should be a priority, and it is a priority for Krakow to mainstream the idea of human rights on every level and in every sector of city functioning. So we have to perceive cities as a very important in respecting human rights. We are not only building transport or organizing educational system. We are respecting the right for education. We are respecting the right to have an access to free or inclusive transportation and so on. So it's very important to look at this from this perspective, but we cannot forget that the city is also the employer and very often one of the biggest in the city. And we have to also, while building equality policies inside of the city for citizens, we have to also remember about our employees, because only happy employees create good companies and only happy employees create good cities. So I think the same rule apply here also in public administration as much as in private sector.
Sounds to me like a marriage between the UN Charter of Human Rights and local company policies around what it means to be inclusive. But can we go down to the level of specific initiatives that a city wants to implement? As you said, you're one of the biggest employers. What would be policy thinking, initiative thinking? What needs to change, preferably overnight, for things to improve?
Well, I think we are in the process of building a very innovative, diversity, and inclusive strategy inside of the city. We were one of the first cities in Poland who adopted the gender equality plan. And it's sort of our long-term strategy, how to implement gender mainstreaming and diversity and inclusion for City Hall and city institutions. It gives us a possibility to implement very good practices, well known in private sector very often, as, for example, psychological help for city employees, many webinars and campaigns concerning anti-discrimination, but also work and life balance projects. So I think we are in a good place. We know what we have to do. We know what the plan is for the next 2-3 years. We know where we are going. And it's an important step, because if we want to really implement the human rights-based perspective on local level, we have to be ready for that as an institution. So our employees in city cultural institutions, in schools, in hospitals, and in City Hall have to be aware and have to have knowledge about the complexity of discrimination, idea of human rights. We have to know how to properly react and build inclusive solutions. And you have to start from yourself to build something forward. So that's what we are doing. We started from ourselves, and now we are more and more ready to build more and more on local
It
level
sounds
in the
it sounds to me, Nina, as if much of what you're saying is primarily about raising awareness and trying to correct those areas where discrimination can even be unintentional and people are not even aware. There is no ill will behind it, but simply there is not enough education in the process. And what do we understand by education? Understanding people's needs a lot deeper, right?
Yes, it's very often that we talk about being aware, being empathetic, but I think it's also connected to imagination. If we have
Mhm.
imagination about how people can feel in different situations, different people with different needs, we are more and more aware about this diversity that builds our city. And with this awareness, with this imagination, we can just build better solutions for the city. And I think this imagination, this empathy, is important on every level of administration. It's important in schools, it's important in city hall, it's important in hospitals, and so on and so on. Because, well, Krakow is a multicultural city with a very with a lot of challenges, and we have to be ready, and we have to also really invest in our policies to make our city more inclusive, more open, more transparent. And to do so, we need employees who are open, transparent, and inclusive, and know and know
If we
that this is a
were,
priority.
hard to disagree with all that, Nina. If we were to take it a little more to the level of detailed initiatives over the past 2 years, what are you the most proud of in terms of tangible achievement, policy implementation? Because the fact in itself that the mayor decides to have a plenipotentiary exclusively dedicated to these issues demonstrate the importance of inclusivity for the city, of sending out a signal to the wider world, so to say, that Kraków is an open city, and it feels proud of that status.
I think the position is just the beginning. You need a lot of political will to really implement equality policy on local level. I would say that for me, I'm the most proud of the gender equality plan that I spoke about. I think it was crucial in the beginning. I am very happy that we have such prosperous relation with NGOs from Krakow. We have special grants for equality projects for many years now. We have Equality Council. So I feel that our solutions and projects are being built in a participatory manner with the third sector and activists. And I think it's very, very important because it makes
But
them more grassroots. Yes.
Nina, now that you're stressing it so much, let's clarify for an international audience, which this conference is for, because when we say equality policies across the spectrum are so important, it does imply, doesn't it, that Krakow had major issues with equality before. Did it? That would be my question.
Well, I think it's a challenge for every city in Europe right now. I think every major local government is implementing equality policies. Not because we are struggling, we are in certain parts, like with a human rights crisis in Poland in general, but I think we are aware um, about what can come, and it's all about raising awareness and prophylactics so we can just build more and more empathy in society. So I think it's very important, but also to sort of acknowledge the lack of addressing the important issues for certain groups for many years. For me, one of the first and most important things was to implement gender mainstreaming on local level. It is something that Vienna or Barcelona is doing for 20 years. And we just began 2019, so we have a lot of to catch up on. But I think we are doing a lot in a very short period of time. We were able to build gender addressing gender issues projects concerning health, education, culture, history, heritage, and many others. We are also doing a lot of projects concerning LGBTQI rights, and since 2016 we are doing also migration policy. And I think that's very crucial also right now after what happened in Ukraine. That's sort of shown how much is needed to have a policy to be ready for things that could happen. And migration and refugee crisis, we know that those are challenges that face us and that we will be facing in the future. So we have to be ready, and it's all about this imagination. How are we gonna to imagine what will happen and how we will address it?
You
Yeah.
mentioned that every city has, to a large or smaller extent, issues with ways they either implement or don't, they see or don't see. Is there anything unique to Kraków in this journey? Because I'm tempted to ask you, in the wishful thinking environment, if you were to assess where you are right now with the policies and measures and level of awareness you want to achieve in Kraków, on a scale of 0 to 10, where would you put Kraków today? And going back to the original question, anything truly unique about the way Kraków goes about it?
To be perfectly honest, I don't think that fighting for equality is something, it's a process that can be ended. And then you can just sit one day and said, okay, we did it. We are an equal city. There's no discrimination. There is just perfect situation. There's no hate speech, no polarization, and so on. There's, I think it's an utopia. I think it's all about raising awareness and empathy, but I think the work is never done. So
But you
I'm
know what the
happy that.
problem is? You know what the problem is if you have this long-term goal that doesn't see an end in itself, in the sense that with specific goals that you make slightly more tangible, project-like, it's perhaps easier to measure progress, isn't it?
I think city can have to be ready to adapt for the dynamic changes all the time. So the goals have to be sort of described in a way that gives you elasticity, because the situation is changing so fast. Nobody knew that COVID will happen. Nobody knew that war will happen. So we have to have solutions that will work for different situations, different challenges, different events. I think it's the power is people ready for the change and with the knowledge. So if we have city employees, directors for city institutions, and so on, prepared and trained in for in topics of equality and anti-discrimination, they will adopt their own policies and solutions in a way that will be inclusive a priori. So I think
Okay.
it's key is here. It's to be prepared, to have knowledge, to raise awareness, and it's also very complex because the discrimination for certain groups is also it happens on legal level that we have no power to change. It happens on central level. So it's really hard to address discrimination on local level when you do not have solutions, legal solutions. So it's a bit complex.
Fair enough. Nina, on a scale of 0 to 10, where are you today? Where 10 is obviously dreamland territory, perfectly inclusive city, and 0 is obviously unsatisfactory. Where would you put yourself now?
I would say we are at 5.
At 5. Well,
yeah, I would say we are at
much
5.
work needs to be done.
Yeah, we have strong foundations. We have important documents adopted. We have people trained, and we have a lot of projects already happening. We've been doing this for 3 years. I think a lot positive change has happened, and I think we have also very important goals ahead, and I'm happy and motivated to address them.
We only have 1 minute to do that, I'm afraid. I wish I could have half a day to talk to you, but please tell me, future plans. Top 3.
Well, equality policy adopted as a document by City Council. That would be priority number 1. I would say implementing human rights framework created by Agency of Fundamental Rights. We already started, so continuing this process would be priority number 2. And I think priority number 3, it's still training and raising awareness inside and outside of the city hall. And for me personally, the goal for next year is education.
Wonderful.
In terms of schools, teachers, and so on.
Is there a place where an international audience can read all about it in English on the City Hall website?
We have a website. It's called równość.kraków.pl. We can also we can send it after the conference. The address. There is a place in English that you can read about our initiative. So you're very welcome.
And for those of you who haven't heard, równość stands for equality in Polish, and it's a perfect tongue twister for everyone if you want to remember the address. Nina will share it with us. Nina Gabryś, the City Mayor's Plenipotentiary for Equality. Thank you, Nina, that you found the time to join us.
It was very nice to have you. Thank you for the conversation.
Thank you again.